ignites. Sellers in control, watch their sales grow. Empowered to win with eRank we flow.
Happy Thursday, eRank. Yeah, it's been a week. That's myself and Starla back. Starla, it was Mark's birthday last week, wasn't it?
Yes, his birthday was last Thursday, so I felt like it would be really, really awful of me to sit and live stream for an hour on his birthday. But no, we're back. Hopefully you guys had fun with Anthony and Brian. If you didn't get to watch that, it's obviously available for replay. Pam and I are going to be talking about the earnings report. Full transparency, I did not watch it yet. So I did go through the slides though. So I'm probably going to be more equipped to answer, more detailed questions next week. Same with Pam, because we'll have a chance to really digest everything. But when this just came out, when did we?
It was last Wednesday, I believe, but we were both not available. I tried to watch it today, but yeah, I will confess to drifting off and not really paying as much attention. I've got to go through it again. So we're going to need you guys to help us with everything there. But yeah, some interesting things. And of course, we always want to keep you up to date with the new things on eRank. Although Brian and Anthony did great loads of everything last week. And which I have to catch up on. I have to catch up on everything that was added to eRank when we weren't paying attention. But yeah, I do have
the same thing. Pam, do you have a tan? Do you have a tan?
It could be muck. No, we actually did see some sunshine. Yes, I was on holiday, but in Scotland. So yes, don't take my goth card away. I suffered with the sun a little, or I loved it. Yeah.
Sorry, my camera's so blurry, guys. I keep trying to refocus it. Wow. All right. Well, I went ahead and popped the link to the earnings report in. It's easy to get the gists of it at a glance. Thankfully, when you've sat through so many of these earnings conferences over the last 10-ish years, you get an idea of the patterns. Unfortunately, again, GMS is still down, and that means that sellers aren't making money, but consolidated revenue's up. So
I've got graphs.
Do you have graphs?
Yeah, but that's the first thing I do. I can't even remember. There we go, share screen. I can't remember how to do any of this. So here is my famous GMS, Etsy revenue and GMS graphs. So the GMS is the blue line. It's in billions, and that's the important one for us. That's how much sales, how much money came in due to sales on Etsy. And I think there's a definite wee trend there of it not looking great. I think Etsy had to, compared to 2019, it looks amazing, but things are definitely not looking amazing, which probably explains why quite a lot of us are feeling the pinch this year. It looks like Etsy's still feeling the pinch.
Yeah, and this is quarter one. I mean, if you go through and look at quarter one for past years, quarter one's always going to be a slower month because Q1, we've just passed the holiday season. There's not as much going on. It's spring, plus the economic climate isn't really helping all that much. So
yeah, we always get this big boost for quarter four, and then it drops for quarter one, and then, but yeah, you can compare and everything there. I've also done my GMS per seller. Now this is from the numbers of all under the Etsy banner, rather than just Etsy sellers and just Etsy GMS. We do occasionally, they did give us some of the numbers, but they don't always give us the numbers. So this is the one I can compare. So that is for Q1, it was an average of round about $350 per seller. So if you've made more than $350 in Q1, you're above average, really. So,
I know for some sellers, that's either going to be like, oh, $350 sounds great. I wish I could make $350. But then for the high volume sellers, it's like $350 is the worst ever. I can't even like run my shop on $350.
yes, it is a surprisingly, if you've not heard these numbers before, it is surprisingly low because a large amount of people are not making much money.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, any, yes. And the other one we have is the ratio of buyers to sellers. So we would like more is better. We would like more buyers for each of us. And difficult to say. Well, 2021 there was a step downhill and things are maybe recovering slightly, but because Etsy, that, yes, I do remember that from the investors report. They did mention they deliberately put up the price for people starting a new shop that's now at $25. So I
See,
didn't.
the thing is, they say that, but a lot
Yeah,
of the
and
sellers that I've talked to have been paying like $40.
yes, they seem to have been doing it randomly because some people haven't got charged at all. Some are still on $15. I think there was a oopsie glitch and someone was getting charged a couple of $100.
Oh,
But yes, but that is one thing. But I did want to actually, while we're sharing things, I nearly forgot about this. We've got a little extra thing in the dashboard when we're talking about people not getting many sales or anything. Right, a few of you have been sharing in the past how well you're doing with your Etsy shop. So the team got together and we now you've outsold people your little celebration. You can now download the badge. You get a pretty little badge to share in social media. Now it's just a brand new thing, so give us your feedback. We only, like, you're in the top 10% of sellers. We're not breaking it down into exactly 7.5% or whatever. I think I can't remember the exact number. It's like you're in the top 0.1%, you're in the top 1%. So it's just starting just now. So let us know what you would like to see in your little happy shareable button thing. But yeah, I've definitely seen a few of you have been sharing, been excited to share. And also quite a few of you are always asking, is that true? I've not sold much and it says I'm in the top 10% or something. So you can see if you've made more than $350 in Q1, you're probably doing better than most. So yeah.
I love that. And it's the perfect, I just took a look at it. It is the perfect size for Instagram's new preferred,
Oh,
their portrait setting when you upload a photo for Instagram. So that's perfect. I love
awesome.
it.
So the guys did great there. Oh, Jessica, thank you. We have 40%, 10%, 1%, and 0.1% just now. So you can say you're above average and share that. And yeah, hopefully when you click to download the badge, it's going to say your shop name and everything, and say how great you're doing, basically. So
Helps with
give it a try.
credibility.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, try it out. Let us know what you think, guys, and let us know what extras you want added in there or not, because we thought it was fun anyway.
I'll definitely talk about that. I had no idea. I had somebody message me this morning, but I thought that they were just asking about the normal, little module box that's always been there that says what percent of sales you are. So that's great.
Yeah, it just went live today, I think. This is something we've been bugging for ages. So thank you so much. Heather's asking, can we get 5% too? Yeah, put it in. Hit the feedback button, the little E on the bottom right of eRank, and let our team know, and they'll collate it all and Yeah, basically, I think this is just a first we go to see if people are interested. If people use it enough, give us enough feedback, we can add all sorts of things to it.
All right. So we had 2 early submission questions from the Facebook group. Both are pretty relevant to the stuff that we're talking about now. So figured we'd go ahead and grab those. Kitty Nash had said, I'd be interested to hear people's thoughts on Josh's comments regarding the addition of elements to quality scores. And then in quotes, we had to rebuild our search engine in a way that had a quality score. We were doing things to really leverage that quality score. Now the opportunity is, how do we make that quality score a lot richer and more robust? How do we let our sellers know what actions they can take in order to boost their quality score? So this quarter, we made the quality score more robust with more elements to it, and we made it not a binary score, but a dynamic sliding score. I wonder what elements they've added. I put the link to the actual slide deck for the investor report, but I haven't watched it. I
No,
did.
that bit, I mean, well spotted, whoever
That
saw
was
that.
Q&A, right?
That was in the Q&A, yes. He just snuck that in. I think it was question 5. If anyone wants to watch the investor report, it was around the 46 minutes, but she's summarized it pretty well. That is pretty much what he said. We do know they've added in the visibility score and in your listings, like new way, how many ways you can do to improve this listing. And I think on the dashboard, they've sort of featured, that they're making it clearer what you can work on. So that's one thing. When they're saying not making it binary, that to me is saying before it was a case of, if you do this thing, you get added a 1, you get added a good, and if you don't do this thing, it's a 0. So a little more nuance there potentially. So, but we've got no explanation, and saying they've added other elements, I've not seen anything apart from the additions to like the search visibility page. I've not seen them talk about adding other factors into visibility. And they are trying to be very visible in doing these things. So I think they should tell us if they've done anything.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people forget that it's two-sided in terms of like how the algorithm works. Obviously, there's the side that, we as the sellers are trying to appeal to, and we're trying to, make sure that we're doing everything we can to make Etsy love us and make sure that Etsy understands, what we're selling. Etsy's collecting just as much data, if not more data, about the customers who are shopping and browsing. So there's that other layer where, yes, Etsy's trying to rank us in search, but the more important thing is they're trying to make sure that the people who are holding their credit cards are finding the stuff that they're looking for. And not just that, but identifying the shopping habits of these people, identifying what they're interested in, and making sure that they're showing them more of that, so that, when someone is just bored and browsing on their phone because they've got a few minutes, in the doctor's office to spare, right from their Etsy home screen on the app, they're seeing a curated list of products that are already similar to their interests. And I noticed that Etsy's getting better at that, because a couple months ago, Etsy added this kind of endless feed where you can just scroll and scroll and scroll forever right from your app screen. But none of the products that I scrolled past, they were very Etsy. They were very, things that Etsy would feature, but they had nothing to do with anything I had ever searched for. They had nothing to do with my interests. It felt like I was being given a lot of things that Etsy wanted to showcase, but it wasn't curated for me. And I'm like, well, with all the talks of AI and machine learning, you would think that Etsy would curate products that are based on things that I'm interested in and show me stuff I haven't seen before. Well, now, as of I dare say a week or so ago, it's gotten even better. And now, I am seeing a lot of things that are nowhere near related to anything I'd searched for, but mixed in that, there are things that I have searched for in the past. So I can definitely feel that Etsy on the consumer side is starting to hopefully showcase, things that customers are interested in. But I also notice in these curated feeds, Etsy's only selecting products that have fantastic product photos. Some of them are not like the traditional product on white. A lot of them are lifestyle photos, magazine worthy photos. So if I were you guys, just make sure you've got the Etsy app on your phone, the shopper app, not just the seller app. When you open that app, scroll all the way like past, it'll give you things based on your like recommended searches. It'll say like, things related to this search, things related to that search, keep shopping. But then if you scroll down, you get like this endless feed, almost like a Pinterest, of tons of products. Don't just look at what they're showing you, look at the photographs, because it's definitely changed a lot from how Etsy like used to promote things. I feel like a lot of the products and the things that they're showcasing, it's getting a lot more, I don't know, I'm seeing a lot more lifestyle type shots as opposed to just products displayed well. So, we might be needing to change our strategies a little bit. Look at the things that Etsy actively wants to promote to shoppers.
Yeah, and the apps is going to be a focus. We both spotted this, and Josh did say, I wrote it down. Yeah, 44.5% of GMS came from the app. So people are very, very much likely to buy when they're on the app. Although he did mention as well that there's always going to be a place for the desktop, because people who are buying really big budget items like to double check on the computer, like to spend a bit more time researching on a big screen, which I think was a really interesting point.
Big purchases equal big screens. You don't make
Exactly.
big purchase on small screens.
I hope not. Yes, I was glad to hear that. But actually, Josh will be glad to hear what you said, because you didn't hear him say this about the app, but I had always thought there was some good personalizations in what they were showing you. It just wasn't very good yet. But basically, he was saying, in up till now, it hasn't been very personalized. They've been showing what most people like. It was very bland and generic.
Mm-hmm.
And now they are working on making it more personal to you. Another thing they were certainly saying, up until now, they've only used what you've searched in organic search to tailor things to understand what you like. They're now looking at lots of other places, including the ads you're looking at as well. So that, I didn't know they weren't using ad data in the past. Don't see why not. It's data they've got. But so they're looking at organic search, ad data, everything you click on, especially what you purchase and stuff. So that will be interesting. Yeah, they're saying they're not overly worried about the tariff things that's happening. They're going to be obviously keeping an eye on it, but I think we'll have to keep an eye on that as well. But some interesting numbers was that currently at this minute on time on Etsy, there are over 60 million items ready to ship from the US. So that's why he's not overly worried about incoming things. They are pivoting if necessary to make sure that people can find the things locally that they need to find as well. So I think that was our next question, actually, wasn't it?
Yeah, Anna had asked about the localized search, and because it had primarily, I had to actually find an e-commerce bites article, because it used to be one of the factors listed in the Ultimate Guide to Search, and it's not in there anymore. So I had to go track down an e-commerce bites article that had stated it, and we can't find any of the articles on it now, like official from Etsy, but the e-commerce bites article, and I know this is correct because I've covered this in past videos. Localization applied to Canada, Australia, EU, and UK, where, localization, how close you are in proximity to that customer, will impact how you appear in search. For example, someone closer to Pam is more likely to appear in search for Pam, because Etsy wanted to reduce that carbon footprint a little bit. Now we're not seeing any of that. We're going to I need to do a deep dive through the seller handbook and see if it's mentioned anywhere.
Yeah, we were nearly late coming online because we were both trying to search for these things because we totally remember it. ET
Right.
definitely made a feature of it. And I like, you guys are great. Do any of you remember? I do seem to remember that they talked about at least certain states in the US had added localization to them, but I can't find anything on that. But Starla is absolutely right. It was definitely UK, Canada, Australia, and the EU, which totally at the time made sense. But I don't remember at any point when it was removed or not talked
Yeah.
about anymore. I
And
thought it was always a thing.
Anna had asked about digital sellers, and honestly, I don't think we've ever had answers on if those localized scores impacted digital sellers. I mean, I can see obviously it completely defeats the purpose of eliminating a carbon footprint because it's digital, but maybe Etsy still applied it to digital products for the sake of, buyers wanting to support people closer to them. But at the same time, I don't know because I've never seen Etsy say anything um,
Yeah. I
about
remember they were talking about it was people in these countries didn't, we weren't as used to waiting long periods of time for shipping. So we
Mhm.
didn't, it is definitely a thing in the UK that eBay's been suffering with. You go to buy something and it's coming 2 months later, whereas we're used to like next day delivery even before Amazon. So that was definitely a thing. So that wouldn't factor in with digital things, but
Right.
I don't remember, and we can't go back and look at that because the articles seem to have vanished or
Yeah.
we can't find them. So, guys, let us know if you remember any of this. We're definitely not having a across the world hallucination here saying this used to be a thing and it's back.
No, it's definitely there. There's other articles from other sources that cite it. We just can't find the official from Etsy, which means Etsy has updated it, which, honestly, if they've gotten rid of the localization, the cool thing about Etsy is that you can shop from people all around the world. And I think it's a shame that you could come across the perfect product and be willing to, it might be some exactly what you're looking for and you're willing to wait, but then you never discover that item because it's bumped so far down in search just because it's in a different country. I think that it defeats the purpose. I think that clearer shipping times or estimated arrivals, maybe Etsy, when they started adding estimated arrival times, maybe they found it not relevant anymore to do the localized search. I've never been a fan of it though, because I have no problem waiting. I have no problem. I'm actually very excited to order from other countries.
Yeah.
It
It
and
really depends. I think if you're wanting something quick for, I think your Mother's Day is just coming up. If you want something quick, you need it there right now. But
Right.
sometimes you want the very right thing. But they do in the app. They are talking about little modules with like close to you, shop local things. So I think if you can find the things close to you and also search isn't impacted in an awful way, because they are talking about wanting the browsing experience to be much better. So you don't have to search quite so often, which is an interesting thought.
I don't think that it'll ever overtake the majority of Etsy shopping habits and purchases, though, because I do still believe that most people with that purchase intent are the ones who are making direct searches for exactly what they're looking for. However, I also think that Etsy can take, a lesson from these short form content platforms like TikTok and Instagram and even Pinterest by, like Pam said, creating an environment where people want to browse because they're bored. And I find myself doing that quite frequently. And, I honestly was disappointed in Etsy for several months because I would do all these searches. I like all the book themed stuff, all the bookish products, and I would make searches related to those. And all I can think to search is the titles of the books, and then I see a lot of the same stuff over and over again. Every time I make the search, I see the same product. But I really loved Etsy would show, they had like this little module box that said, related to your recent search, and then it would show like 6 items, that I had not searched for but were similar to things I'd searched for, stuff I'd never seen before. And I really loved that. And I'm like, but 6 items isn't enough. I want like a show more button, or a show, show me some similar things. And Etsy's toyed with things like that in the past, where it's like, oh, you like this stuff, here's a show more button so you can see things similar to that. But then they kind of, I feel like they like pulled back on it for a few months. I really think that Etsy's just in this big experimental stage right now, trying to see what it is that's going to get shoppers almost habitually addicted to spending time on Etsy for fun.
Yeah.
And that's cool. I like that. I think that Etsy, if you're going to spend any time scrolling through something rather than like a negative space like social media, might be better for people to spend a little bit of time looking at artists that they want to support. Even if it's not stuff that they can afford, they can still, word of mouth spreads fast. It brings awareness up. It allows for discussions, or people taking links and popping them into social media and saying, check out this, silly thing that I found.
Yeah. And I think most of you who've been around here for a while are now going to know what I'm going to say next. But Josh, Etsy Explore, you started making a TikTok for Etsy. Why? Why? Like, that would be perfect. Can you imagine if that was sort of tailored to you and you're seeing bits of listings and then a fun video with someone making stuff? And yeah, I would be on it all the time. But I think there is a gap now, because I hadn't realized that Timu and Shein and everything, I knew they were going to struggle with you guys, but they're gone. They've pulled out of Google Ads and everything, which amazing. But what they had for, don't hate me, I've used both of them to have a nosy, and actually, yeah, I've used both of them. And what they had, what Etsy could do way better, is you could go down a rabbit hole, see stuff you liked, and then suddenly they'd surface a load of other things that you liked, and they'd really start understanding what you liked and stalk you on Facebook, and then you'd find yourself back in it going, oh yeah, there's that and there's that. And they were so good at things like that.
And gamification as well. I've never used Timu, but I watched my father-in-law. He was over at our house scrolling through Timu. He's like, they're very low income, so they do a lot of shopping on Timu. He's an older guy, and just watching the way he navigated the app, kind of like, looking over his shoulder at the way that he browsed, I can definitely see the appeal with all the little like countdowns and like money saving and like all these flashy little things, which obviously Etsy probably doesn't want to add a bunch of that stuff because it's going to make it look, junky. But they can they've got to take a lesson from some of these sites' playbooks in terms of, what it is that's making these sites so successful. Obviously, the price being number one, and Etsy already said that they're not going to be the platform that competes for cheap. But if not for cheap, then what is the other thing that people go to Temu for? It's for interesting, weird stuff. It's for weird things that you've never seen before. And, the benefit of shopping on Temu is that you get it really cheap. But the trade-off for that is you get a piece of junk that arrives in the mail like 2 months later. And you're just like, why did I order this? What is this thing? Like, oh, the quality is not at all what I thought it was going to be. What if, Etsy were to take all the best qualities of that, but then that product arrived and it exceeded your expectation, rather than it arriving and you going, oh, because
yeah.
that's your response. When something arrives from Temu, it's like, oh, and I know that because I get lots of Temu Christmas presents from family. It's like, oh, that's nice.
I've actually been super lucky. It was Wish that was the good ones with me. Like, I think someone said getting a half size ironing board. That's where I got the doggy paddling pool that was the size of size for a hamster and things.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And Kat has a good point similar to this. Like, I'm curious how Etsy wants to super personalize our feed for us, but also focus on gifting. The stuff I buy for me is very different to what I buy for others. I am interested as well, but Shein and Temu do seem to get that. I don't know. So these algorithms are possible. They do seem to work.
They're touchy too. So if you're shopping for a birthday, you might, for the weeks following, you might get things related to that birthday search. But then as your shopping habits start to shift and your search habits shift, the machine learning is constantly learning, and then it'll start skewing towards the things that you're searching more recently. You know, I don't think that it's a permanent record of all the things you've searched for. I do think that it's going to be monitoring based on your like most recent searches and what you're most interested in. And I'm sure that they'll catalog things like if you've been searching for the same stuff for years, for me, it's like the bookish products, then obviously I'm going to get a lot of recommendations. But for example, I threw Mark a dinosaur themed birthday party, and I'm still getting dinosaur themed stuff in my feed, but I know because that was like a fleeting set of search patterns. They only lasted a couple weeks. I have a feeling that, all of the platforms I shop on are going to quickly identify that, okay, this was a one-off thing. This isn't something that this person commonly searches for, but we know that every month they do search for Court of Thorns and Roses. So we should probably make sure that we continue showing Starla Court of Thorns and Roses themed products.
Exactly. It will be like how we believe the Etsy algorithm is working just now anyway. Like, it tests certain things. So it'll keep testing Starla with dinosaurs occasionally for a bit. If she kept clicking on dinosaurs, then the entire feed would become dinosaurs. But if she stops looking at it, maybe she'll get one or two over the next couple of months, and then they'll just be like, yeah, no, it's not working. So we'll see. But and it's TikTok, Shein, Temu, these people know that they do it really well. I think way better. Like Facebook, Instagram, everywhere else is trying to catch up. I think that's what's really hurt eBay is that thing that's just not there. It doesn't show you good stuff. So, I don't think many people are avidly searching on eBay. Amazon's a little bit there, but Etsy, yeah, if it hires someone that knows what they're doing, and it could be really cool. I think a crafty place that you can sit and scroll and waste time sounds awesome. But we'll see, because I thought years ago they were talking about these kind of personalization algorithms, and they really, I tested them so much, it wasn't active enough. I spent ages searching for Gothic jewelry, and they weren't showing me more Gothic stuff. They were still showing me mid-century modern when I've never searched for it. So.
In the Ultimate Guide to Search, this is something that we talk about a lot on my channel, at least. And like positive engagement from search, how listings get engagement. I've actually never read this part. It feels like Etsy finally did a good job of clarifying what that means, which is great, because it's the same thing that Pam and I have been talking about forever. But now in the Ultimate Guide to Search, where all their search factors are, which I discovered when I was looking for the location stuff that's not there anymore, there is a section titled Listing Engagement Rate. When a buyer searches on Etsy, our goal is to help them find items that they want to purchase. No duh. To do this, Etsy Search looks at clues from shoppers to determine whether a listing is appealing and meets their expectations once they click. We look at how well a listing converts, how many people view it, and then make a purchase to determine whether buyers are interested in it, which boosts that listing's engagement rate and placement in search results. So we talk about that positive engagement. And I'm really glad that they added something about vacation mode in here as well. Like, because everybody says like, oh, vacation mode like kills my listing. No, you just, engagement ceases. Engagement is like the thing that's keeping the listing afloat. And you don't lose, your like listing quality score, but the engagement rate when you go on vacation mode, obviously that slows down. And if everybody around you is getting lots of engagement, then you're going to fall behind them until you bring that engagement back, which is why I always say, like, after you do vacation mode, like, launch new products, host a sale, post on social media, send out an email to your email list. Like, make sure you get, even if you're not making, a bunch of sales, just get activity back in your shop, get people interested in all your stuff. That way, it will help to show Etsy that you're back.
Yeah. I just woke up my shop again yesterday, so I'm seeing how quickly I can get back to my rankings. So, but that's it exactly. But yeah, Etsy updated all of those when they put in the visibility articles a couple of months ago. So guys, if you haven't read that, they are updated. They put in those things. I think they added like the talking about the vacation mode because they took out the article Your Search Questions Answered, where it had that in it. So I think they've taken the things that are still relevant and added them in there. So definitely Etsy did an overhaul of all those ranking articles. Ultimate Guide to Search, just go through all the articles there. Etsy updated quite a lot of them. Yeah, it's interesting and cool. Yeah, and it is good that they have a section for the engagement score because before they'd only mentioned it in how to make your listings convert. There was a little section in there, but now they've floated it up and shouting about it.
Let's see. Chuck said, may I ask how long do you think it takes for a new shop to be seen? My SEO is following all your advice and scores well. What does that mean? Check your rank. The product is fairly decent. Just keep in mind, fairly decent. That might just be your language, but fairly decent isn't usually the words that I would use when trying to get someone to pull out a credit card during kind of an economic crisis. If the product's only fairly decent and there's something that's phenomenally amazing, then phenomenal is going to sell every time over fairly decent. So make sure that, obviously sometimes nobody wants to say my product's the best ever because we have a hard time saying that, but just make sure that your product is good. Professional photos, quality, etc. Yet no visits. Well, there's no amount of time. There's no magical set amount of time for how long it takes.
You're correct, but I do have something that Josh said in the investor report. I was just looking at this. So this is a number that they look at, and they are saying the number of new sellers making a sale in their first 90 days is increased. So that's the time period. Now, Starla was just going to tell you, and I interrupted you, that there's no right time. People sales can get seen in the very first day. But we've always said new shops, on average, it's taking people a bit of time to get momentum because you don't know what you don't know. And so Etsy is using a metric. What they track is that first 90 days. They're saying the shop's doing good if it makes a sale in that first 90 days. So.
Yeah, I would really step away from the side of selling where it's like appealing to a computer, because I feel like you might be going a little too, you've got your mind on that track, but there's actually two parallel tracks where one track is appealing to the algorithm, but the equally important track is the human who is struggling to pay their bills, the human who has to love your product so much that they're willing to get up, go find their credit card, type in all those long numbers to make that purchase, the human who has to love your product more than everything else that they're seeing on that search page when they perform that search. Especially as competitive as Etsy is right now, when there are more sellers than ever before. So making sure that, it's not just a fairly decent product, but a phenomenal one that's going to speak to a real human being. That's the most important thing. And I've seen shops succeed that have awful SEO and awful product photos and no branding and everything, in terms of like, if I were to give the shop a critique, I would fail them when it comes to Starla's critique rating, because I would say everything is wrong with it, but the product is so darn good that the customers don't care that the photos are bad. The customers don't care that there's no branding. They're able to make a couple sales. Etsy identifies at least, what the product is, even with the poor SEO. Etsy says, okay, we have all the data about the customers. We know enough about what this thing is, even with the crappy SEO. We know enough about what it is to know the types of customers who are willing to buy this. Let's show this thing to as many of these types of customers as possible. The most important thing isn't SEO. It's not photos. It's none of that. It's making sure that your product is awesome. And that is arguably the hardest part when it comes to selling in a very competitive marketplace. So again, you might just be, being modest, talking about your own product. We all do it. Nobody wants to say like, I have the best thing in the whole wide world. But really buckle down on, both sides of that parallel line. Computer side, very important. That's how modern search works. It's how modern online shopping works. But just as important, if not more important, in my opinion, is the human.
Totally agree. Like, you can have all your ducks in a perfect row, but when a customer searches and they see like 20 things on the screen, if they're not likely to click your item because the other ones are so much better and for whatever reason are so much more clickable, then Etsy's going to slowly stop showing you anyway. If your item is way more likely to be clicked and purchased, doesn't matter how great your SEO is, Etsy's going to start going more so, let's show Chuck's products more. But just a quick breakdown of what you've asked there. So my SEO is following all of your advice and scores well. I assume you mean that's in the listing audit, which is great, but those scores are fantastic to tell you understand best practices for how to construct a listing. We're not scoring you if you have chosen good keywords or good keywords for your item, or if your items are good. So the first thing to be doing there, use the keyword tool to make sure that the keywords you're using are good keywords. And by that, things that people are searching for, that have a low enough competition level that you can actually get a chance of being shown, and that describe your item. So find good keywords. Then you can use our rank checker to find out if you're ranking for these keywords, because at the end of the day, you can choose a keyword. It sounds really good. You put it in your listing, but if Etsy has tens of thousands of other listings they can show, you might just not be ranking for it. And there's all the ranking factors that go into it, including, how great your SEO is, but also your shop quality score, the engagement score that you've got for that keyword, all the things. So you might think you found a great keyword. If you're not ranking for it, you might need to dig in a little more. Oh, Chuck's saying scores well means he's on page 1 to 2. So that's cool. You're ranking on the first 2 pages for the keyword. So you've checked that, that's working. So now you need to go back and check, is the keyword good? Are people currently searching for it? Because we can rank and search for a made-up keyword, for a made-up word, or for things that nobody's searching for. So make sure people are searching for it. And again, look at what the other listings on Etsy look like. You might be ranking well, but if the other listings have better photos, or fulfill the keyword better, answer the question that customers had better, fill the need that they had, prices, shipping time, all of that thing, just study what the other listings are doing. And professional photos is a great thing, but customers decide what's a good photo. So look at what the top sellers are. I've got some photos on my listings that are over 15 years old. I don't like those photos, but they're the ones that are still selling. So yeah, most customers aren't professional photographers, don't understand aspect ratios and white balance and everything else. They just know in that split second when they have all the listings on the screen, that looks good. So yeah, it's
Yeah, and sometimes mock-ups, if you use mock-ups, they can be too professional, or they look like you can quickly identify that it is a mock-up. So, sometimes mock-ups, especially when you're competing with other people using similar ones, it can actually be a disservice to utilize mock-ups that, on their own, very professional. They look great, but they just might not stand out on a search page. We do listing critiques every now and then. Like maybe once a month, I think we do them here. Yeah.
Yeah, we try and do them at the end of the month. And also, if you join the Facebook group, link should be in the description, you can post your listing, and there's loads of people there that can look into it. And also Jessica over on what's she over on Reddit. Yeah. Jessica does reviews there as well, so it's worth signing up for those things. But yeah, usually the last Thursday of the month we do some reviews on here. If you check the past lives, you'll see what we're doing. Yeah, we get very sidetracked and go off down rabbit holes, but hopefully it helps some people. We've enjoyed them anyway.
Let's see. I think that's all we had for questions. Sorry, so I'm repeatedly getting like a telemarketer call on my phone. Like it actually pops up, the caller ID pops up, so I just cancel. You know, you swipe it out, but then it just keeps calling back over and over and over again. So
oh no. Lila's sticker said the keyword tool is great. I go down the rabbit hole searching words. Yeah, absolutely the same. This is not a plug for this whole video is a plug for eRank, but this is not a plug for eRank. But what I love with the keyword tool when you go down that rabbit hole is I get ideas for new things that I can be making, finding different keywords. I'm always inspired for things. So keyword research, it's not only not just about finding keywords for what you've already made, but it's about research before you make the things so you can save yourself money by making things that people want. It's I love it. I have to limit myself and only do keyword research like every couple of weeks, else I do get going down a rabbit hole and just spending too much time when I need to be doing other things.
That's fun though. That's tomorrow during the Friday Bean. I'm actually just going to be doing like a live demonstration of, attempting to find keywords or niches or product ideas that have high searches and low competitions. And I'm just going to try to find as many as I possibly can. And I'm doing that, to give everybody freebies that obviously, they can hurry up and write down, but mainly to show people that it does take a lot of time. It's not something like when we do a quick tutorial, that's been edited, that we've done the research ahead of time to make sure that the stars align perfectly so that the tutorial comes out correctly. Or, sometimes I'll even make a fake screenshot if my numbers don't represent what I need them to, and I haven't found the perfect like keyword and I need to record really quick. Occasionally I'll alter a screenshot just so that I can, show for demonstration's sake. Because it can take a long time to find those perfect sweet spots, whether it be keywords or even product ideas. If you feel like you're spending a ton of time on stuff like that, don't feel like you're alone and don't feel like you're doing something wrong. It does get easier with time. Keyword research in general, and, understanding like what works for you. It does take a lot of time and like pattern recognition, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. The more you begin to identify, terms that you can use over and over again in your listings because they tend to perform overall. Like for Pam, obviously she's going to put needle felted dog in all of her listings because that's what she sells. But she also knows that Etsy knows that that's what she wants to be known for. She doesn't need to go into eRank and research needle felted dog every time she wants to list something. She knows that that combination of words needs to be in her listings, whether they're trendy right now or not, because that's what she sells. And that is, a term that she can forever rely on, which is why having a niche is really, really great. And for other reasons, not just, for the sake of customers knowing what you want to be known for, but also because it saves you a lot of time because at least a couple go-to keywords that you can use in all of your listings.
Yeah, and Etsy does talk about it. Looks, when you put up a new listing, it looks at how previous listings are done, so there's a little bit of potential keyword authority. They get to know that you are good for that kind of thing. And also if you have a defined niche while you're doing your keyword research, it's not just one keyword. You can have a bunch of keywords that you'll be thinking, oh, I'll try this, I'll try that. You can you can have your little go-tos that you rotate out and stuff. Yeah. But I do want to say, like, you don't have to get the perfect keyword. You're not going to get the perfect keyword in your research first time. Find the keywords that are good enough, like set aside the amount of time you want to do on keyword research, write down all the keywords you find or save them in a keyword list even, and then get them listed. You're not going to find the first time out, you're going to find the perfect keyword that blows up your shop straight away. So just find some good enough ones and run with them and see what happens, and then tweak them. You leave it run weeks, months, preferably like about 2-3 months, leave something run and then come back and look, was I ranking for it? Was I getting views for it? Were people clicking on it the best you can see? Was I getting any sales for that listing? And then learn from that, then do keyword research again, come up with different things.
Yeah, I think that it might be fun, Pam, to go in maybe for the next Q&A, go through and play with like showing them like things like the change tracker, and maybe like track a couple of your listings and just kind of show them like what to look out for in the change tracker, because I feel like it's such an underrated tool for actual like growth measurement. I think that that's another one that, again, Chuck, it might be a great tool for you when you make these changes within your shop, especially if you do have a couple of like core keywords that you keep coming back to. I feel like things like the change tracker tool, it just really helps you to identify if you're on the right track. Because there's no one eRank tool that solves all of your problems. And some tools are going to, some sellers aren't going to use them, or, they're going to have a go-to tool that they like to use. But I feel like understanding all of the tools and knowing what they all do, so that when you have a time when like, okay, I have this problem, I need to know how to solve it, or I'm about to make some edits to a listing. How do I know that these edits are going to be good, or if they're going to be bad, or if, I need to switch back to the keywords I had in there a week ago? A lot of the times I think that it's just a general, lack of understanding of all the tools that we have and ways that, you can use them. And we do try to make sure that you guys have like all the education, but when there's a lot of tools, it's like, where do you start? What do you do next? So let us know if you guys would like to maybe go through things like the change tracker, ways to identify, listings that might need help, your actual tracking metrics. And it's funny, the reason I was typing here just a second ago, Pam, was I had just gotten a comment that I absolutely could not ignore. Where is it? Where'd it go? Of course I lost it. No, I had a comment, somebody saying, do you know Etsy doesn't support Google Analytics from 2023, an eRank feature for tracking the stats? This feature doesn't work and it's old. And I'm like,
yes, we do know that. We spoke about it at length.
right. I said only Universal Analytics was retired. eRank now uses GA4, which is the newest version of Google Analytics. It's like these little bits where you only have part of the story, and you miss like a big important thing that completes the picture. So, which I feel like is Pam and my whole job, is completing the picture when people miss like one puzzle piece from the story.
Exactly. And it's easy. I mean, especially we have videos on here, and Styler makes videos and I make videos, and we've talked about tools we're excited about. And then because algorithms are weird, the YouTube algorithm might dish up a video from 5 years ago and you'll go, oh, that looks like a really cool tool. But Universal Analytics doesn't exist anymore. And you're like, YouTube, could you not show the videos? The better ones, the new ones?
Yeah, it's...
Got a question in from Kat. How do you find which listings are bestsellers in a particular niche, please? We have a few tools, but in your competitors' listings, you can search for any shop, any of your competitors that you follow, or for any shop, and then we give you the estimated sales for each of their listings. It is just estimated based on our own algorithms, so it's mainly accurate. It gives you an idea, but it doesn't tell you the exact. Etsy doesn't tell anyone the exact number of sales for individual listings, but it will certainly show you which are likely the best sellers for your competitors.
Yeah, if you're kind of going in blind and you don't have competitors in mind yet, I would do a very like broad keyword search related to, you know, whatever the product or niche is that you're interested in. And then we have the 4 different tabs under, you know, the graphs that pop up immediately, the little pie chart and the graph that shows the seasonality of the keywords. Right under that, you'll have the option for 4 different tabs. The SERP analysis, and I can't remember. Oh, you got them up. There you go. We do have a top listings tab there, and this one won't always show you the top selling listings, because everyone, you know, Etsy likes to experiment. Sometimes you'll find a listing that's up there that's never sold. It'll be in top listings because I'm sure Etsy's just kind of playing with search placement.
Do you have the estimated sales for these listings?
So it's easy to go through and take a scroll and start to identify which ones are doing very, very well. And then you can steal some of their keywords.
Yeah, exactly. If anyone doesn't know, these little stars beside any of these tags, just save them to your keyword list. So if you see anything in these top listings, you're like, oh, I'd never even thought of a cat collar tag. You can just borrow it, stick it in a keyword list, remember it for later. Oh, fancy cat bell. There we go. So
it's interesting to go through and see what's ranking for that term, what the top ranking listings are for those terms.
Exactly. So much fun in there.
Sometimes it's encouraging because you go in there and all the listings are crap and you're like, I can do better than this.
Yeah. That's always, sometimes you'll look and you say the competition's so high for this, and then you go and look and it's not always that the competition's well optimized for the keyword. If you've got a better listing, you can definitely do well in something that didn't look like such a great keyword. So you've got to look at all the factors, all the moving pieces there. That's why it is cool to go in and look at the top listings as well.
Well, guys, it looks like we'll probably check out the change tracker next week. We don't have any plans. I didn't have any plans next week. Did you, Pam?
No, I think that sounds cool. We'll do. I'll play around with some of my listings. So we've got some. I hope I can pick up my shop after vacation and have some data.
You know what? Maybe that's all data. It's all data. Just track a couple. Maybe make some changes to some that aren't, you know, doing well, just so they can see like what it looks like. But
I've got notes for myself to do that. It's like change some of your listings.
Just a couple, just so they can see. But we're down to the last 2 minutes. We're out of questions, so I think we'll probably be good to cut it. Thanks for hanging out, guys. We hope you had fun last week. We weren't here, but make sure you catch the replay because it was an Anthony Wolf episode, and he always tends to spill good stuff when he's hanging out.
Absolutely. Yeah, for those who haven't met him yet, you really have to go over and watch last week's stream. Anthony is our creator of eRank, and he absolutely geeks out over all this. He still loves all this stuff. So he's so much fun to watch. And all the stuff that we're not allowed to talk about, he lets slip every time.
All right, guys. And yes, happy Mother's Day to all the mamas. Make sure that you're safe this weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you guys.
Bye.
It wasn't easy, no, but with eRank, we're trending now. I dreamed of topping all the charts. I wanted sales to blow up. Remember long nights crafting, no one clicking on my stuff. But I signed up for eRank. Now my shop's a rising star.